Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Berkeley County Board of Education meeting this Tuesday, July 25th, 2017. I call this meeting to order. I declare a quorum is present and the media has been notified. I'll now entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
There's a motion by Mr. Wright, a second by Mr. Ramsey to approve the agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The agenda is approved. We'll now stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll now move on to agenda item 1D, the approval of the minutes. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
There's a motion by Mr. McQuillan. There's a second by Reverend Spann. To approve the minutes of the executive session meetings for July 10th and July 11th, 2017. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. We'll now move on to agenda item 1E, the approval of the minutes for executive session meetings, the 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock July 17th meeting. So moved. There's a motion by Ms. Kelly and a second by Mr. Wright. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. We'll now move on to legacy builders and special recognition.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Mr. Jackson, members of the board. It is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Sean Wright, Athletic Director of Cross High School, in recognition of the girls' Class A 400-meter relay state champions.
Good evening. First of all, I want to thank Mr. Jackson, the board, for inviting us to celebrate this wonderful occasion. And just want to be clear, the reason why I believe our girls and our kids are able to be successful is because everybody on this board cares about cross. And I know that when you guys care about cross, we are able to then hire good people. And when we hire good people, they're able to foster those relationships with those student athletes, and you get state championships out of them. And I just wanted to thank you guys for caring about us. I want to thank our administration, Ms. Smith, and I also want to give a special thanks to my coaches that I have in here, Coach Morrell and Coach Smalls. Would you guys please come forward? These guys, they take on the responsibility of caring for these kids, and you don't win a state championship without loving your kids. And the fact that these guys spend so many times, so many hours, even on weekends with our girls, it showed, and it showed in Columbia with the state championship. So because you guys care, because our administration cares, we're able to then show that care to our kids, and then we get state championships. So I'm going to let them introduce the girls, and then we can move forward.
How everybody doing? We have Janasia Halls, our senior. We have Kaylin Lisbon, another senior. We have Renee Green. She was a sophomore this year. Is Latia here? Latia Smalls. She was a freshman. And our alternate, she's not here, Diane Pinckney. But these girls, they work real hard. We had a few years trying to making it to this point, and through their hard work and dedication, we was able to get it done. So we appreciate coaching these girls, and we really enjoyed, them dedicating themselves every day, because like we tell a lot of people, when track season comes around, you be burned out from all these other sports, and most of them play multiple sports. And to give us all their time every day to dedicate to get to this point, we really appreciate that.
And lastly, before we get out of here, I just want to make mention that even though these girls excelled on the track field, they even excelled more in the classroom. There's none of them up here has below a 3.0 GPA, and so. And also, we have our valedictorian, who is also a member of our track team.
Picture you can.
Moms and dads of these track girls, are you here? Stand up, moms and dads, and let us give you a round of applause.
Good evening, Madam Superintendent. Madam Chair, Mr. Superintendent, members of the board. I found out a couple of minutes ago that I'm doing this introduction, but I could not be more happy that I am doing it, because I would like to ask Ms. Jessica Benton-Chesrow to join me up here while I talk about her. She is newly married, which is why I'm using her full name. Most people know her by Jessica Benton, but she's now Jessica Chesrow. And I had the wonderful fortune of being able to hire Jessica many moons ago at Berkeley High School. And at that time, we were struggling with how to raise instruction at that school, and thought we might want to start an IB program. And I said, Jessica, I think I want to start an IB program. What you think? And she said, yes, ma'am. And Berkeley High School is an international baccalaureate school now. So next, I said, Jessica, the current superintendent says that all high schools should have a forensic program. I think you could do that. And she said, yes, ma'am. And we have a national award-winning, multiple-time forensics club at Berkeley High School, and no other high school has one. And so then I said, Jessica, I need somebody to design a full release mentor system from the school district in the midst of this reorganization. And she said, yes, ma'am. If you ask Jessica to do something, she makes it happen. There are few people like that in the world, and I'm so thrilled that she has been recognized at the national level as well. We are here tonight to congratulate her for being the 2017 District Leader Commendation winner for the National Speech and Debate Association. Only 10 of these awards are given each year, and it is for her exemplary work in growing membership in the district, because even though you've worked for the district with me now for 3 years, she continues to coach the Berkeley High School forensics team. So I present to you Miss Jessica Ben Chesterman.
Good. Madam Chair, members of the board, Mr. Jackson, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to recognize Ms. Tana Lee as the South Carolina Association of School Administrators CTE Director of the Year. Tana, I ask you to come on up so that I can talk about you for a while. When I walked in, her son was sitting right beside her, which he's right here. You want to wave at everybody? Oh, I just scared you, didn't I? I said, your mom is a rock star. And if y'all don't know Tana is a rock star. She is the rock star for CTE, not just for Berkeley County, but the state of South Carolina. Folks, this is the second year in a row she has won this award. And I think that in and of itself deserves a big round of applause. She's initiated countless programs in Berkeley County, but what she was nominated for this particular year is really special. Our state is going through the process of reorganizing how we do high school diplomas, and the state director for the special education program for the state of South Carolina actually nominated her for her work on the diploma pathways and having a work-ready credential for students that don't necessarily qualify for the diploma, which obviously is going to be a great benefit to our students with special needs. She's, again, one of the biggest cheerleaders you'll ever meet for CTE, and if she ever approaches you and she starts talking about CTE, you better listen, because if she thinks you're not listening, she's going to be right here telling you what you need to hear. So she's been with us for 5 years now as director of CTE. So I'm going to turn it over to you, let you say a few words.
Thank you. Thank you. It's always an honor to be appreciated, especially by my colleagues. We have a great team of directors who support me and CTE in everything we do. And I have my family. I've got Jameson here with me tonight. I'm very appreciative that he's here, but I also have my extended team here, my extended family. Sonia and Heidi, and even Jerome, Sonia's husband, is here. I have to say that because they support, we act as a family. We work as a family. Everything we do together, and we do it because we love Berkeley County. We all live here, we've raised our families here, and we believe in what we do so much that if we ever are tagging behind you saying, hey, we want to do this, or how about this? This is a great idea. Don't you want to do this for the kids in Berkeley County? Isn't this a great idea? And pretty much we have the energy, and we find the funding, and we have the support, and they allow us to make things great in CTE for Berkeley County. I just appreciate the opportunity to do it. Thanks.
Thank you. concludes our legacy portion tonight.
Thank you so much for, there are always wonderful, wonderful legacies brought before the board, and we appreciate getting to celebrate state level, national level recognitions in every aspect of what we do, and we are so thankful for the people that make it happen every day. Congratulations. If you came just for a special recognition and you'd like to go home now, feel free. We have one more recognition a little bit later in the program, but we're going to move on now to agenda item 4A, which is citizen comments. In order to conduct the meeting in an orderly and efficient manner, we ask that you honor the following guidelines. Stakeholder comments are welcomed and encouraged. However, the board will not take immediate action on public comments at this meeting. Any person wishing to address the board must register prior to the meeting. Comments must be regarding programs, policies, or procedures. Comments regarding complaints against employees other than district-level executives or references to students other than the child of the speaker will not be heard in public session. Groups addressing the same topic should select one speaker. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per speaker. The board chair reserves the right to allot additional time or halt public comments that do not adhere to the guidelines. Up next is Ms. Angela Simmons, and she would like to speak on the superintendent search. Welcome, Ms. Simmons.
Sally, we skipped agenda item 3A. We can do it after citizens comment, but
I looked right over top of it. We'll do citizen comment and go back.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Board Chair Warford, Interim Superintendent Jackson, board members. I'm going to do this very quickly because I only got 3 minutes. I have spent 40 years in one capacity or another working with and for the students of Berkeley County. I believe in the village concept, and I consider them, all of them, my children. So whenever I stand to speak before the board, I am speaking on behalf of all my children. That being said, I stand here this evening because I saw the press release of your top 3 candidate choices in the superintendent search that has been conducted. I came from a school whose principal was very big on data. With the exception of Dr. Michael Turner, I believe this gentleman is the most data-driven person I know. And he taught his teachers how to delve into data and love it. So the first thing I did upon seeing the names was begin dissecting the data. And what I found was somewhat disconcerting. I have my issues with all 3 candidates, but what troubles me most right now is the data I see coming out of Darlington County. When I look at our job, when I look at our job as educators, our goal, our main objective is to ensure that when our students have matriculated through our school system and walk out of our doors as graduating seniors, they are college and career ready. Have them ready for college, ready for career, for making sure they are, as our motto states, empowered for success. One main piece of data that we use to give us that information is the ACT College Readiness Assessment. This is what is reported on our school report cards. What concerns me in the data is that in every subject area, Darlington is below the state average and well below Berkeley County, especially in the areas of reading and writing. How can a student be successful and competitive without adequate reading and writing skills? So I have an issue with bringing in someone who has helped a district of approximately 10,500 students to get here, when we have someone sitting right here among you who has helped us take 31,000 students in Berkeley County here. Why are we looking to bring someone to take us here when we have someone who's already taken us there? We are not looking to take our students down. We want to take our students up. And if you can't lead 10,000 students to success, how are you going to lead 30? Why are we looking to bring someone in from a school district with a lot fewer students than we have and who hasn't been able to carry his own district above where we are? I am troubled, as all of us should be. I see a disconnect. I see a problem. We want the best for our children, and we have the best. So why are we looking elsewhere? I need to know. If you tell me you didn't know the data, I have a problem with that. If you tell me you don't care about the data, I have a real problem with that. So my answer is why. The public needs to know why. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Simmons. We'll move back to agenda item 3A. I'll entertain a motion for Head Start.
so moved.
There's a motion by Mr. McClellan, a second by Reverend Spann, to approve the Head Start budget expenditures report for June 2017, the Head Start credit card report for June 2017, the prospective new hires, the revised school readiness plan, and program information report. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Apologies for being out of order on the agenda, but at least we were out of order and did citizens first and not last, so that's good. We will now move on to agenda item 5A, recommendation to name the road at Bowings Corner Elementary School. I'd like to invite Mr. McClellan and Mr. Ramsey. Play the video first.
Madam Chairwoman, I'd like to make a resolution. And I'd ask that Mr. Ramsey and the rest of the board join me at the podium, as well as Ms. Brewer's family, please. We all loved Miss Francis, and so we, as a board, we would like to make this resolution. Whereas Miss Francis Brewer, born on August 29, 1938, graduated from Bishop England High School in 1957 and was married to Alfred Brewer, raised 3 wonderful children, Thea Ann Taylor, Allison Kaysen, and John A. Brewer Sr., and was unabashed in her pride of her grandchildren, Melanie Francis Allen, John A. Brewer Jr., Alan K. Brewer, and great-grandchildren, Matilda Francis Allen and Ryan Colt Brewer. Whereas her children and grandchildren were her inspiration to serve on this board, the Berkeley County School District, and to serve her community. Whereas Ms. Brewer was elected to the Berkeley County School Board of Education in 1990 and re-elected 3 consecutive times, 1994, 1998, and 2002. Whereas Ms. Brewer served the Berkeley County School District in numerous ways, including as chairwoman of the Berkeley County School Board. Whereas as a leader of the Berkeley County School District, Ms. Brewer helped lead the district to pass, at the time, the state's largest bond referendum to improve schools across Berkeley County. Whereas in addition to her service to the Berkeley County School Board, Ms. Brewer served the educational interests of the entire state of South Carolina, including as president of the South Carolina School Boards Association. Whereas after retirement from the Berkeley County School Board, Ms. Brewer worked at the Berkeley County Government Administration offices, where she greeted and brought smiles and laughter to thousands of visitors and employees, and continued to be opinionated in her unwavering mentoring and support of other Berkeley County elected officials, including myself. Whereas Ms. Brewer was a force to be reckoned with, and she was appreciated by all for her humor, grace, and most importantly, her selfless love of others. Whereas, Ms. Brewer, to put it simply, she loved life.
Now therefore, be it further resolved that Deion Jackson, intern superintendent of the Berkeley County School District, be authorized to name the street leading into Bowings Elementary School, Francis Brewer Way, adopted this 25th day of July 2017.
You might step in on the, yeah. Close to this. y'all ready? 1, 2, 3. And one more. 1, 2, 3. And don't move. I have Mr. Ramsey's phone. All right, ready? All right. 1, 2, 3. And one more. 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you all. We loved her, and it's funny in a strange way because
She had it her way.
One of her favorite songs was "I Did It My Way." So that could have coincided. And you knew her, so you know. Thank y'all for listening to my. Thank you so much. Love y'all too.
That was yours there. That's yours.
That's why I should
We'll now entertain a motion to approve the resolution.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion by Mr. McQuillan, a second by Mr. Ramsey to approve the resolution for the naming of the road at Bowings Corner Elementary School as Francis Brewer Way. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. We also have a signed copy of the resolution, one to keep and one for you to have as well, and we'll get it to you. We'll now move on to financial services, agenda item 6A.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Superintendent Jackson, ladies and gentlemen of the board. You have before you best value bid 514-1617 for the interior painting at 3 schools to include Boulder Bluff Elementary, Devon Forest Elementary, and Macedonia Middle, as well as the exterior painting at Daniel Island School. This will be paid by capital project funds. We ask that you award the Daniel Island exterior project to Quintex Solutions for an amount of $50,284 and award B&R Painting Incorporated to Boulder Bluff, Devon Forest, and Macedonia Middle School for a total cost of $189,000 for an overall total award of $239,284.
$284.
Okay, thank you. For a total award of $239,284.
Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the BMD number 514-1617 for interior painting at Boulder Bluff Elementary School, Devon Forest Elementary School, and Macedonia Middle School to B&R Painting Incorporated for a combined project cost of $189,000, and for exterior painting at Daniel Island School to Quintex Solutions for a project cost of $50,284, total cost $239,284.
There's a motion by Ms. Kelly, a second by Mr. McClellan. Is there any question? Are there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. We'll move on to agenda item 6B. You have before you RFP number 517-1617 to purchase pianos for Philip Simmons High School. This is going to be a term contract, and this also will be paid by capital project funds. And we ask that you award RFP number 517-1617 to Steinway Piano Gallery for the purchase of a Steinway Boston Grand piano, Steinway Boston Baby Grand piano, for a total initial purchase of $55,165. Is there a motion?
Madam Chairwoman, I'd like to make a motion to approve RFP number 517-1617 for pianos for Philip Simmons High School for an initial price of $55,165.
There's a motion by Mr. McQuill and a second by Mr. Wright. Are there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Next, I'd like to invite up Mr. David Cheatwood, Mr. Jeremy Cook, and Mr. Walter Goldsmith from First Tryon, and Interim Superintendent Jackson to talk about our 8% borrowing capacity.
Good evening. My name is David Cheatwood. I work with First Tryon Advisors. I'd like to introduce my colleague who's in the back, Walter Goldsmith. Thanks very much for having us here tonight. Our firm, First Tryon, is serving as financial advisor to the school district. And we're here tonight to talk to you about various debt-related items. I want to give you an overview of a couple things related to the school district's outstanding and projected debt. You've got a couple slides in front of you, and we've got it pulled up here. I will make that a little bit bigger. Testing. And make that into a slideshow. Great. We've got various, again, a debt overview. We want to start with just talking about different revenues that are available to pay your debt service. That's going to be largely your debt service millage. In addition, we want to give you both a historical and projected view of those revenues. We then want to provide you with some information on the school district's currently outstanding debt, and then walk into the capacity you have going forward to issue additional debt under your 8% capacity. What we've got on slide 1 here, and you'll see up on the board, as I mentioned, your primary source of revenue to repay your general obligation bonds is debt service millage. Based on your fiscal year 2017 collections that just concluded last month, the value of a mill was approximately $900,000. The value of the debt service mill was approximately $900,000, which we typically assume a slightly lower collection percentage during the given year. So assuming a collection percentage of 95%, that's going to produce a collected value of a mill of about $856,000. That value of a mill, that includes that includes obviously your real property taxes coming in, your vehicle taxes, as well as some fee and lieu payments and some multi-county payments. And so that's an all-inclusive number of that value of the mill there of $856,000. In addition to those property tax revenues that you have coming in, you also have some miscellaneous revenue that's really in the form of delinquent taxes that have come in from prior years that are repaid in the current fiscal year, as well as some manufacturer's exemptions. What we've shown you there at the bottom in the chart, we've given you a historical look, a 5-year look back, and then some projections going forward that we're taking into account when looking at your capacity to issue additional debt. And so what we've shown you is on that second column there, we've got the fiscal year and then the debt service millage and other revenues. That's your fee and lieu, that's your multi-county payments. And what you can see going all the way back to fiscal 13, you were about $34.5 million, and that's grown each and every year since then. Your fiscal 17 collections were just north of $64.6 million. That is at a 75 mil debt service level. And so some of those jumps in prior years were at a slightly lower debt service mill, but the last year or two you've been at that 75 mil level. And so at that $64.6 million, in addition, I mentioned some miscellaneous revenues you have, delinquent collections, as well as some manufacturer's exemptions. In fiscal 17, that totaled about $2.8 million. And you can see that's been roughly, 2.5 to 2.8 or so over the last 5 years. When you go to the far right column, or the second column from the far right, the total revenues, that is the amount of revenues that are flowing into your debt service fund each of the past 5 years. And so we look at the fiscal year that just concluded, 17, you all had about $67.4 million in revenues flow into your debt service fund that are therefore available to pay debt service on your general obligation bonds. Now, going forward, when we want to evaluate your capacity to issue additional debt going forward, we want to be conservative on this end. And so on that point, we've had conversations with county treasurer and auditor to talk about your value of mill going forward. And the typical procedure y'all have taken in the past is just look at your last year's collections, your fiscal year 17 in this case, as your starting point. As you see, you all have had increases each and every year in your debt service mill collections. And so presumably that will continue. There's a lot of growth going on in the area. But to be conservative, we assume what you got in 17 is approximately what you would get in fiscal year 18 as well. And so when you look at that millage and other revenues, we've got 64.2 versus the 64.6. We had a couple of just minor adjustments in there. So again, roughly the same that you got in during fiscal 17. And then on those miscellaneous items, we are projecting $2.5 million and just flatlining that. Again, that's bounced around a little bit. So we want to, again, be conservative based on last year's. You got in 2.8, let's assume 2.5. And so when we look at your revenues, because again, the starting point for looking at your capacity to issue debt and pay your debt service is your revenues available to pay that debt service, obviously. And so looking at your fiscal 18 projected revenues, we've got, as you'll see there, about $66.7 million in revenues that are projected to come in during fiscal year 18. Again, historically, hopefully this is a conservative view and that you all actually get in more than this with some of the additional value that you all will see. And all of this, I will note again, this assumes that it's a 75 mil debt service collection. So if you levy 75 mils, the projection is $66.7 million in revenues. The other thing I'd point out, it's in that fourth major bullet there, just above the chart. In addition to those revenues that you have coming in on an annual basis, you also have built up a little bit of a fund balance in that debt service fund. Totally different than your general fund debt service. Your general fund balance. This is in the debt service fund. You'll have you will have at year end a little under $8 million built up in that. And that's a function of the conservative nature of the projections that we have when we're looking at levying the debt service millage and the collections that are coming in. And so presumably, for instance, in fiscal 18, you all collect more than we're projecting, and so you'll get in a little bit more revenue. And each year that debt service fund balance fluctuates. We like to be surprised to the upside on the revenues, and so therefore you tend to build up a little bit of a fund balance. It is not unusual to have a fund balance built up in there, provide some cushion in case it goes the other way and you don't get in those expected revenues. And so you do have some fund balance. Those revenues are available to pay debt service going forward, but again, we want to note you would typically maintain some level of fund balance in there to provide some cushion. So that is, again, just an overview of the revenues that you have available. And going forward, we're really focused on fiscal 18 as a part of this discussion, but we want to note the next couple of years, if we simply just assume a growth rate of 1.5%, you can see how those revenues grow from $66.7 million to $67.6. So roughly about $1 million or so per year in revenue going forward. That's the we've broken that up into two different categories here. You have your currently existing general obligation bonds that are outstanding. And you can see the debt service each and every year for the next 5 years. For instance, this upcoming year in 2018, you're going to have about $37.5 million in debt service, principal and interest due on your general obligation bonds that are outstanding right now. And you can see how that bounces around a little bit, down to $30 million for the next couple of years, and then a little bit more drops off in 22. That's one major column. The other major column is what we call the estimated annual 8% debt service. And you see in parentheses there a couple different acronyms. That is, you all have various forms of non-general obligation bond debt outstanding. You have your installment purchase revenue bonds, you have your special obligation bonds, you have a qualified energy conservation bond, and a qualified zone academy bond. And so with those, in order to pay the debt service on those, as you've historically done, you issue a GO bond each and every year. Actually, you issue it twice a year under your 8% capacity to pay the debt service coming due on those bond issues. And so what we've done in that column is we've projected out, because you have to issue that GO debt each and every year, and we project out the interest rate on those and therefore the total debt service. And so you can see this upcoming year, you're going to have just under $18 million of GO debt issued under your 8% capacity to make those payments on the non-GO debt that's out there. And you can see how that grows going forward from just under 18 million to 23.7, fairly level. And so all of that is debt that you all have again on the books that you're scheduled to pay. That far right column is there for your total existing debt service. And you can see it's approximately 55 to 54 million this upcoming year and each of the next 5 years going forward. And so with that, we've got your revenues, we've got your existing debt service. Let's talk about what's left over to potentially pay for additional debt. And so when we carry forward, I'm going to start again left to right in this column. And again, if you can see it there, if you've got it in front of you, those total revenues available. I want to go back and show you how I get to that first number, that 72.5 million. Go back and we'll see we are projecting 66.7 million to come in during this upcoming collection fiscal year 18. 66.7 million. The difference between that amount and the 72.5 is we are projecting the use of about 5.9 million from that debt service fund balance. I mentioned about 7.9 million is currently in there. We're going to use some of that because that's built up. Let's flush some of that out. So we've got the projected use of 5.9 million. And so that's 66.7 plus the 5.9. That gets you the total revenues available to pay debt service in this upcoming year. In future years, we are literally matching you see the 67.6, 68, etc. If you flip back a couple pages, that's going to match where you are in 19, 20, 21. So we're using this one time to this upcoming year to, again, flush out some of that excess in the debt service fund. Now, we may come back this time next year and say, hey, you built up a little bit more excess, let's do the same thing. We're not projecting excess, again, to be conservative, but you may have a little bit that comes in there that can be used for debt service. And so taking that total revenues available column, let's go over to the next one, total debt service. That's what we just went through. That's your approximately 55 million a year. And so when you look at the current value of a mill, that 856,000 or so, the current cost is about 62 mills currently, and it's around 60 to 57. As your value of a mill goes up, the cost of that goes down, and that's what we projected because we're assuming the value of the mill goes up 1.5% each year, so that's why that goes down slightly, and your debt goes down slightly as well. And so that's going to leave some capacity, again, depending on what level of debt service millage you target. For purposes of this discussion in this table here, we are assuming the current debt service millage level of 75 mils is in place now and going forward. And so when we look at that 75 mils, you've got some capacity to issue additional bonds under your 8% debt limit to use up some of that capacity that's in there. And so for this upcoming year, this fall, you will need to issue an 8% GO bond to pay some of those debt service payments that we talked about on your installment purchase revenue bonds, your special obligation bond, etc. So you've got to do that. And then in addition, you have the opportunity to issue some new money for new money projects going forward. And the amount that we calculate that you could issue and maintain that 75 mil target is about 16.7 million. So that would be funds in the bank at closing, which we would close sometime in September, that can be used for projects going forward. And then when we look at going the next 4 years after that, 19 through 22, based on all those assumptions, based on your existing debt service, assuming you stay at 75 mils, we've projected out what you can borrow each and every year under that and maintain that 75 mil target, not go above that based on those assumptions. And again, we may come back next year and say, you got in more revenue, so we can use some of that that's in the debt service fund that built up. So we may come back and say, instead of 12.7 million next year, maybe you can do 15 million. But again, that's kind of, we're trying to be conservative on the projection side here. And so with that, one other thing I'll point out, we are using, or in this projection, using $5.9 million from that debt service fund. That will leave about $2 million in that debt service fund to really guard against any fluctuations in the projected collections there. So if something comes in a little bit later or a little bit lower, you've got a couple million in there to potentially balance against that. So again, it's usual to have some level of balance in there. It varies issuer to issuer, but it's normal to have some level of balance in the debt service fund. My last slide here, and then again I'll take any questions. We obviously want to keep an eye on, you've got a couple limits. You've got the statutory limit of what you can borrow, which is your 8% debt limit. And so when we look at that, that's the first and foremost. You obviously cannot exceed that debt limit. The second thing we talk about is your really self-imposed limit, your millage target, your debt service millage target. So two separate things. First and foremost, you gotta get under your 8% limit, and then you can talk about within that 8% limit, how much do I want to issue? And so this slide is talking about your 8% capacity. And so when we look at your debt limit, it is 8% of the total assessed value within the school district. And so looking at the assessed value, which I don't have shown here, but we've got the column there, 8% of that, your total debt limit is just over $68 million currently. Now, you all have one series of general obligation bonds that's currently, I would say long-term general obligation bonds that's currently outstanding. It's a qualified school construction bond that was issued back in 2010 or 11. There's $19.9 million that was issued there. I've got $12.5 million noted as outstanding. That's because the school district is making annual payments into a sinking fund each and every year to then be used to pay off that debt. That's one thing that we're working on with bond counsel to determine is 19.9 million the right number or 12.5 million. So we've got 12.5 million because again you've set aside about 7 million of funds to pay that. So that's why you see that 12.5 million. That is from your 10 or 11 QSCAB that's qualified school construction bond that's outstanding. And in addition, all the annual general obligation bonds that you issue to pay those installment purchase revenue bonds and your special obligation bonds, etc., that counts against your debt limit as well. And so currently you all have outstanding about $23.5 million for that. That assumes, again, the issuance you would have to do this fall, which is about $15.5 million. You got to make a $15.5 million payment this fall for all those debt service payments coming up. So that has that baked in. And then here on that proposed annual GO new money, again, that would be issued under your 8% capacity. We wanted to break it up so you could see kind of what you have to issue for your IPRB and special obligation bond payments, and then what you could issue for new money purposes. And so you can see there, if we do $21 million, which is footnoted here, that includes that $16.7 million that we just went through that's available and keeping that $75 million target, but it also includes you all back in the spring issued a $10 million GO bond. A portion of it was to make some of the spring IPRB payments. The other portion, about $4.3 million, was for some new money as well. So we've got that built in. That's why you see that $21 million number for the proposed new money instead of the 16.7 or so that we just referenced. All that said, you look at your far right column, what's my capacity going forward? We are showing about $11.7 million in this upcoming year. So again, that's the statutory limit. So technically you all could issue $11.7 million. Again, want to point out this thing that we have footnoted in 1. If we end up talking with bond counsel and we have to count that full $19.9 million on the qualified school construction bond as outstanding, that would reduce that by about $7 million. Either way, you can issue that $16.7 million at the 75 mils and stay within your 8% capacity. And so that's really the punchline in all this, because that's the starting point. You can't exceed that. And then going forward, we've got those same new money projections of that $12.5 million that we've got that we showed you on the previous page. This is showing on an 8% capacity going forward. You all have plenty of that from the statutory side. So I know that's a lot of information, a lot of numbers, but wanted to pause there and take any questions or comments that you all may have. Yes, sir.
First, let me make a statement. Thank you. Awesome.
this is some questions I've been wondering about since I got on the board. Was one of my big things was to start to understand what the deal is with these bonds, because it's been a big issue. I've got a pretty good grasp of the millage and the revenues and what have you. And even looking at these numbers, they look very reasonable, very conservative to me. So even what I know what's going on with the county, I feel real secure. First, with the numbers that you provided, that you've taken a conservative track as far as what you're showing. And just let me repeat what you said. First, what would be the debt service
on this upcoming issue? So it's made up of a couple different components. The first one is what you need to issue to pay your payments on your installment purchase revenue bonds. There's two pieces. There's a taxable piece, because you also have some taxable debt outstanding. That would be issued as a separate series, and that would be about $2.5 million. And then you have the tax-exempt piece, that is to pay all your tax-exempt installment purchase revenue bonds. That's about $15.5 million. So all in, you're looking at payments of about $17.5 million just for the payments you need to make on your outstanding debt.
And if we decided we had certain needs, whether it be additions, deferred maintenance, what have you, working with Mr. Jackson. So our borrowing potential is $16,753,000 for this upcoming year.
That's right.
That's right.
For this fall. Yes.
Okay. And right now we're at 75 mills is what we're talking about, is what this number.
That's correct. That assumes the 75 mil levy.
What I would like to see or propose and see if it's possible, one with this board, and also if it's not a problem with what you're doing, if we decided as this board we were elected to come and be as thrifty and as strong with a dollar as we possibly could, would it be a problem if we wanted to say go lower at 2 or 3 mills? I know we would receive less money, but we still would receive a great deal of potential borrowing power, correct?
Correct. It's, just from a math standpoint, that's really all we're here to show you is from a math, here's what you can do, and if you want to adjust that, here's the impact on that. That is obviously within your discretion to set it at whatever level you want. Obviously, you need to pay what you have currently on the books, but then that kind of additional capacity you have. The only kind of timing is that you've got the auditor will set the millage in the late August, early September timeframe, so it can get on the tax levy this fall. But to your point on 2 or 3 mills, so again, the value of a mill is about $850,000, and so if you're looking at lowering it 2 mills, then you're going to have roughly $1.7 million less in borrowing capacity. And so you, instead of that, where were we here? Instead of that $16.7 million, you'd be looking more at $15 million. And so and you can play it out if you're looking at 2 mills, 3 mills, 1 mill, et cetera. And that would be the case going forward. This is you're just setting it for this year. And so next year you have the same question: how much? What's my levy? How much do I need in projects? How much do I want to levy? So it's the same question each and every year.
And that would be my suggestion to the board for us to consider, is if we wanted to consider lowering the millage by, say, 2 mills or 2.5 or 3 mills. And the reason that I bring that up is with me watching the bonds and the millage all these years, that's not something that I've ever seen the district do other than a reassessment year, and that's where you're mandated by law. But as far as, I think it would be a great signal as far as for the taxpayers if we would take into consideration lowering the millage, and it's something I would want us as a board to discuss at some point in time. Thank you.
So for the benefit of the board, tonight we're going to get the numbers. Then Mr. Jackson is going to come and talk about what we would spend the money on if we draw it. And then next week, probably Wednesday, is when we'll actually vote on millage and the bond resolution, because I feel like this is a lot of information and people need time to mentally process what this decision is going to be. So we're actually going to call the vote. It will be on the agenda probably next Wednesday. So it will give you about a week to process, ask questions, follow up with Mr. Jackson, who can direct you to counsel or financial advisor, whomever, through me, through Mr. Jackson, through Mr. Whitley, whoever that you need to ask questions with. Are there any more questions for Mr. Cheatwood about the dollars?
Madam Chair, I just have one question. Going back to the millage and other revenue column, I noticed from the 13 to 17, the changes were kind of great. And would you explain again why the growth is considerably less from 18 to 22? I know you said something pertaining to that earlier.
Sure. And so going back from 13 to 17, the growth there is a function of just an increase in your assessed value, number one, and then an increase in the debt service levy. And I don't have that handy of what y'all have levied on the debt service in the past, but there was an increase at some point in time during this period. And so that accounts for some of that increase there. And then going forward, our starting point is, and again, talking with the county treasurer and the auditor, starting point is what you collected in 17. And so we feel good about what you collected there, that you'll get at least that amount going forward. So that's our starting point, and that's where you get to that roughly, and again, it's slightly less because we rounded down on a few items, including those miscellaneous revenues. And so we're about the same point in 18, 66.7 versus 67.4. So again, I know there's some rounding there, but roughly flat. And then we're assuming 1.5% going forward, and that's really to be conservative. We could go the other way and say, hey, you all are going to increase in assessed value. A lot of things going on, good economic activity increase in this, and so we can project a higher number, but what you're trying to do is guard against the downside. You'd rather be pleasantly surprised to the upside and have additional revenue, because when that comes in, that is still your revenue. That's going to go into that debt service fund, and so next year, next spring or next fall, you can be able to still use some of that. So it's not lost revenue, but if you go ahead and project that out, let's say we project you get in another $5 million, and that doesn't happen, and then that's where the issue is. If you don't have the money in the debt service fund to pay your general obligation bonds, that's the issue we're trying to guard against. So we're trying to be conservative on the projections and because once you issue the debt, you're on the hook to pay the debt. And so we don't want to go too far one way and then be faced with that downside risk. We'd rather start a little bit lower, get the upside. Again, it's still yours. You can use it. It's just, think of it somewhat like a 6 or 12 month delay. So it's still yours. It's still there as that comes in. Does that answer your question?
So if we don't have anything else from Mr. Cheatwood, I asked Mr. Jackson to, and this has been on very short notice, start to address what our 3 and 5 year needs would be facilities-wise and in maintenance and also expansion and new construction. One other thing that I'm not sure, Deanna, if I'm stealing your thunder, but when we draw the funds, we have 3 years to spend them. And so you can start drawing funds towards future projects. And that was something I didn't know until we were going through this process. But once you draw the funds, you do have more time to spend it. You're probably going to tell us that.
You stole it a little bit.
Oh, I won't take any more. Mr. Jackson, thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chair, board members, as was said, this was I hesitate to call it a plan, but almost a proposal of what we could do if we fully leveraged our borrowing capacity. This is something that we have not done in the past, so this is not a detailed and thorough plan. We will start here. So what are our future needs? It's broken down. Facilities condition assessment. We'll talk about additions and renovations of existing facilities, property acquisition for new facilities and planning with existing properties, and infrastructure improvements with technology and deferred maintenance. And we'll start right there with technology and deferred maintenance. On an annual basis with our capital improvement programs, we have requests that come in probably to the tune of $11.5 million, and every year there's about somewhere between $7 million and $8 million of deferred maintenance that takes place. So that's kind of takes care of that deferred maintenance bit. So the facilities condition assessment, So it's no secret that Berkeley County is growing. We talk about that a bunch. Over the next 20 years, we're projected to increase by 20,000 students and the need for schools, et cetera. Projected need for 20 schools over 20 years. What we don't talk about is our existing facilities. We have a need with our existing facilities to make sure that those facilities are maintained and adequate for educational use. So what is a facilities conditions assessment? It's a comprehensive inventory of all of our facilities in the district. So we have 45 schools now. Next year we will have 47 schools. We have 11 support facilities. Of those 45 schools this year, all but 7 of them or 8 of them are older, on the older side, and may need more maintenance than others. As of right now, as far as a comprehensive plan, the maintenance department, the district, we don't have a comprehensive plan at this point. Because I consider a comprehensive plan to also have a dollar attached to it, dollar value attached to it, as well as a funding source. We don't have that at this point in time. As I said before, we hadn't fully leveraged our borrowing capacity. It provides a detailed information about all of the buildings in the district, current building deficiencies. Provide an estimated cost associated with the renewal, repair, or compliance issues, and determines both the immediate and the long-term needs. And that's something that we spoke with First Tryon about, is the possibility of doing a facilities condition assessment and working with First Tryon to determine if we have how we would fund the projects that we would need in the future. So that's a critical component. So why would we need that? Manage assets from both a financial and operational perspective. The ability to improve forecasting and capital funding scenarios for capital expenditures, not being caught off guard by surprises. If your HVAC unit goes out, that's a big ticket item. The ability to plan, prioritize which facility assets need to be repaired and replaced in lieu of emergency situations, which is kind of what I just described. So that's a facilities conditions assessment. I would rank that fairly high. Berkeley High School. Again, we're growing, we know that. Berkeley High School, the current capacity of Berkeley High School, and this is program capacity. So there's a program capacity, then there's a school capacity. The program capacity is what the architect designs the school at. So there are certain spaces that are specialty spaces, and they count those as specialty spaces when they're factored in capacity. So the current capacity, program capacity of Berkeley High School is 1,600 students. The end of the year, the 2016-17 enrollment was 1,547 students. So they're at 95% capacity, but they're growing. They're growing each and every year. So the proposal for this project would be proposed demolition of the annex building and build a new 2-story addition and expand the existing cafeteria for the growth that's expected to come in the Monk's Corner area in the Berkeley High School attendance zone. That's a need that we will see here pretty soon, relatively soon, in the next 3 to 5 years. Cane Bay High School, the current program capacity for Cane Bay High School is 1,600 students. The current enrollment for 16-17 was 1,809 students. That's where they finished, 1,809 students. So they exceed the 105% capacity for their building. The campus is currently using the shared space method to accommodate for the growth. The proposal there is for a new 2-story classroom addition to increase the capacity to meet the need for the growth that's in that area. The Sedgefield Intermediate. The current capacity for Sedgefield Intermediate is 650 students. The current enrollment was 853 students. That's where they finished at, 853 students. So they're also over the 105% capacity. Proposed renovations include a classroom addition and renovation towards the front of the building. Right now, this red box that you see there, those are 10 mobile units. And even after when after Bowman's Corner opens next year, more than likely with the growth in that area, we will still have mobile units on the campus of Stedfield Intermediate. So in that feeder pattern, in that attendance zone, we're continuing to see growth in that area, residential growth in that area. And this last slide here is just a plan for growth. We know that we're growing. We know where we're growing. The area that you see there is the next in Cane Bay area. The capacity at Cane Bay Elementary is 900 students. Again, that's program capacity. We have a number of mobile units out there now. We are installing 4 more for this upcoming school year. They finished the year at 980 students. And the building was actually designed for grades kindergarten through 5th grade. As we all know, the 5th grade is now at Cane Bay Middle School, so that's 980 students that are kindergarten through 4th grade. Cane Bay Middle School, the design capacity is 900 students. They finished the year at 923 students and are also expected to grow. They also have mobile units on their campus, and we are also installing an additional 4 units on their campus as well. And the signs of growth show no signs of growth slowing down in that area anytime soon. Next Elementary, their capacity is 900 students. They finished the year at 780 students. They're also projecting to grow as Nexton. The majority of those students actually don't live in the Nexton community. That's because they were kind of slow to develop out in Nexton. Well, the new developers out there, they plan to pick up the tempo and pick up the pace of construction, and they're also offering a lower priced product within the Nexton Elementary attendance zone. So we anticipate the student yield to increase in the Nexton development. So therefore, their enrollment at Nexton Elementary is projected to increase as well. As I said before, Cane Bay Elementary and Cane Bay Middle, they have exceeded their program capacity. So it's a recommendation to seek an option for an additional elementary school and middle school to serve those areas. And just kind of the results of this proposed strategy will allow for fairly immediate rollout of a program to address our district needs, positive impact on the quality of education, the educational environment, and address priorities, critical needs, and deferred maintenance issues. Do we have any questions?
You said that you don't have a cost attached to the amount of additional renovation or addition that we would need at those sites. So really, we don't know what type of money we're talking about in terms of the addition to Cane Bay High and I think Berkeley High. So we have not looked at what it would cost to do those 2 major additions to the high school. So what kind of money are we looking at?
Yes, sir.
I'm thinking, at least 10 mil, but somewhere in that area, just from experience. What do you see?
You speak like a man that definitely has experience, and that's what I was telling some of the board members earlier today that inquired about it. The best numbers I could use for a similar project would be at Stratford High School.
Exactly.
Stratford High School was turnkey, just over $9 million, or maybe $9.5 million. You figure in inflation, and that'll take you to your $10 million, $10.5 mark. Then we had some soil issues at Stratford High School, so that increased the price a little bit, and also some structural issues to the existing facility, so that played a role as well. So I would say, right now, I would say a conservative estimate, maybe 10 to 10.5 million. 11 at the highest, and that's turnkey. That's demolition, new construction, FF&E as well.
At what site? You talking about Berkeley?
Well, the projects, the additions would be similar. Because we're talking about a 2-story new construction classroom space. So with that, they'll be fairly similar. There'll be a little bit more work to be done at Berkeley High because there is a demolition involved. So there's the demolition work there, hauling all the stuff off, and then also doing the prep work on the site. But roughly, it's a similar project.
And the addition would be probably, we're looking at about maybe 250 of those students at each location, or probably King Bay more than that, would you not say? Or what are we talking about additional enrollment, looking at the expense for classroom space? We'll see the number of increases to the enrollment.
I would say 250 at a minimum. I believe we can get 250 to 300 easy.
King Bay may be a little bit more rapid than, say, Berkeley High School.
Sir?
I said King Bay may be a little bit more aggressive than actually Berkeley because of all the middle schools. You can see that you're saying that the middle school at capacity, this is at capacity.
If I had to prioritize, yes, sir. If I had to prioritize today, I would rank the addition at King Bay High School as a priority, and then with Berkeley High School coming in next edition.
I didn't mean to prioritize it because we want to make sure.
No, we're going to have to prioritize.
Just based on growth and based on space, you can't argue with the growth. You can't argue with the space. In the next couple of years, King Bay High School is using the shared space method, being very creative, but they may not be able to after about 2 to 3 years. So.
Mr. Jackson, I'm intrigued by the possibility of the additional 8% money. In the original budget proposal, I think there was like a $5 million surplus on the 8%. So I'm ecstatic to hear that these options are available to us. I don't see it as an end all though, because as you know, the growth is going to require obviously renovations, but also additional facilities. So the board is likely going to have to consider some other options because it's going to take some time to build these facilities, even if the funds are available. Has there been a study to determine possible attendance lines, the redrawing of attendance lines, or a possible down the road another bond referendum for this additional growth?
All right, so we'll start with the last question first. As far as any exploration of a referendum, no, sir. We have not begun any exploration of a possible referendum. With respect to the enrollment patterns, the attendance lines, we commissioned with Public Pathways, which is a company that helps school districts on the Eastern Seaboard with their growth and growth management and their strategies. We have a study with them. We commissioned it last year. They came down, did a presentation, also did an update as well. So we can project where the growth is coming by feeder pattern and actually by attendance zone. So we can project school by school, year by year, what the attendance will look like or what the enrollment will look like at each school in the district. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
And I think another important piece of information is we're going to have to make a plan to draw yearly, because one $16 million draw is not enough. You're going to have to make a long-term plan to draw yearly and have it budgeted out so that you know where the money's going. I think the facilities plan is a big part of this so that you can predict your HVAC failures and roofing system failures and budget that in to your new needs as well. That's a big part of this to me, is having a long-term plan. It's kind of like taking money out of savings and not being real sure where you're going to spend it. It piddles away if you don't keep a real close eye on it.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the key. Like you're saying, we have a plan and we draw this money, but it's going for facilities. It's going for additions. It's going for deferred maintenance. And we stick to that. And then if we all can come to an agreement, then it seems like it's really going to help us out a lot
but also there's never going to be any question where we're spending the money because we're planned it out and we move forward. So I think that's great.
And we talked about it during the general fund budget process, but there are multiple revenue sources, and the state only requires us to budget that general fund revenue. And so that's why I think we haven't seen this money in this way before, as it wasn't required for it to be budgeted this way. So I think that's why the information is it's not new information. I think it's new to some of us.
This will be something that we'll vote on too on it as far as later, right?
Yes. So next Wednesday we do have the resolutions, and Jeremy Cook is our bond counsel, and Jeremy is here. But we do have the bond resolutions. What they say we're going to be drawing the money for. So if anybody has questions about those bond resolutions, Jeremy is here as well. We tried to write it in a way to encompass the information that Mr. Jackson presented tonight, in addition to deferred maintenance and technology, so that we can address needs as they become available. I think Jeremy's got copies for everybody.
Good evening. So the first resolution that Mr. Jackson is passing out for y'all to take back and consider with you is for the Series E bonds, which is the taxable bonds. Those are debt service payments that are required on December 1, 2017 and June 1st, 2018. On some of the taxable debt, principally the taxable installment purchase bonds that were issued at Series 2015 B bonds in 2015. So that's a not exceeding $2.5 million. There are no new money projects in that resolution. So those are just to make debt service payments that are already due. I have a second resolution that Mr. Jackson passed out as well. This is for not exceeding $33 million. That obviously assumes that you wanted to keep 75 mills. So to the extent, and you have the debt capacity to do that, to the extent this board made a decision to levy 72 mills or 74 mills or 70 mills, obviously that would reduce that number. So the number in the resolution is a not exceeding number. So if that resolution were adopted exactly like it is today, but then the board also voted to levy 72.5 mills, that would be taken into account as well. So it wouldn't mean that 33 million could be issued. It would mean that you approve 33 million and then work with a financial advisor. They would tell us how many bonds in terms of millions of dollars could be issued for that 72.5 mills or 70 mills or 75 mills. So that 33 doesn't mean 33 would be issued. And then in section, I think it's I, there is a listing of the projects. It's not an exhaustive list. You'll see that it ties together with the projects that Mr. Jackson just outlined. But it's not an exhaustive list, but it does list the additions and renovations, the new schools, the acquisition of land, and other projects that were identified. Again, nothing's being voted on tonight, but it's for y'all's consideration.
The 33 million is for 2018.
So the 33 million is would be a 2017 bond issue. Would be a portion of that makes the December 1 payments that you're already required to make on the installment purchase bonds. The Series 2013 A, B, C, and D, and 2015 A bonds. So about half of it is for those payments, and then about half of it's for new money projects, as outlined by Mr. Jackson. So if you were to do the full amount, you'd be doing both. The debt service payments.
The existing bill and then the additional projects.
That's right. So you know you have to issue the GEO bonds to make those December 1st payments. So really the question is then on the new money piece, how much and the timing of that.
So we're looking at about $16 million possible for new projects.
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I realize this is a lot of information. I've been thinking about it lots, so I don't know. Everybody has not, and so I really want to give time for everybody to take under consideration what is best for us to move forward. So we'll actually entertain the action items next week if no one has anything else. Up next, we'll move on to agenda item 7A, the second and final reading of policies, human resources. Dr. Levine.
Good evening, Board Chair Watt, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Jackson. Policies and rules listed under agenda item 7A were approved for first reading at the June 27th school board meeting. The policies and rules are being brought back to you this evening for second and final reading. As previously indicated, the revisions made to these documents are a direct result of changes required by the South Carolina State Department of Education. At this time, it is the recommendation of the administration that you approve the second and final reading of policies and rules as listed under board agenda item 7A.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve second and final reading of policies and rules for revision as presented.
Second. There's a motion by Reverend Span, a second by Mr. Wright, to approve the second and final readings of revisions IEK, R, IHA, IHA-R, IHC, IHE, IHF-R, IHFB, IHFBR. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Next, we'll change hats, and Mr. Jackson.
Good evening, Madam Chair, board members, ladies and gentlemen. Can't believe that it's almost time to go back. I hope everyone is enjoying their summer in this last full month of summer vacation. You would think that because it's July, there's not much going on, but not so much. I have a few highlights to share with you this evening. Our National Junior and Senior Beta Club Conventions. I'm excited to congratulate the Beta Club of Westview Middle and the Beta Clubs of Berkeley High, Goose Creek High, and Stratford High School in their qualifications at the state level to participate in the National Junior Beta and Beta Club Conventions. The Westview Middle Beta Club, they placed fourth in the Junior Division II group talent competition. We're proud of these Westview Warriors, and we look forward to celebrating them again when they return to the state and national convention next year. Beginning yesterday, all Berkeley County administrators gathered at Westview Middle and Westview Elementary for our annual summer leadership training event. As this training was planned and coordinated by the Office of Leadership, Development, and Evaluations, I want to extend my appreciation to Dr. Kim McLaren for taking the lead this year in planning these 3 exciting days that's been information-packed for our administrators. Tomorrow's training includes an announcement and recognition of our legacy legends. If you have an opportunity, please stop by for lunch. We're very much looking forward to congratulating these outstanding former educators. Yesterday afternoon's lunch, we had the wonderful opportunity to recognize the principals and assistant principals of the year. These administrators were nominated by their peers based on outstanding performance and commitment to their schools and to Berkeley County. This year's principals of the year were Amy Fulmer of Westview Elementary, Mr. Anthony Dixon of Philip Simmons Middle, and Mr. Rick Raycroft of Hanahan High School. We no doubt will be acknowledging those individuals at the next board meeting, more than likely. This year's assistant principals of the year are Daniel Island School's Jennifer Hurd, Macedonia Middle School's Amanda Bice, and Cane Bay High School's former assistant principal, Mr. Tim McDowell. Again, the recognition was based on their assignments as of last year. We could not accomplish what we do without the leadership of our administrators and just what they do on a daily basis for our schools and for our districts. Again, next week, next board meeting, not next week, but the next regular board meeting, we will acknowledge and celebrate those individuals. And last but certainly not least, our One Berkeley Festival is coming up. I know I've been saying it for a while now, but August 12th, Saturday, August 12th, please write it down. We will have our second annual One Berkeley Goes Back to School Festival right up the road there at the Moncks Corner Regional Recreation Complex. If you'd like more information regarding sponsorship or volunteer opportunities, please contact our Office of Communications and Community Engagement.
For the board chair report, we have a big week coming up next week. There will be meetings next Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, August 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. We do have a tentative schedule. Our candidates will have a press opportunity early in the morning with Ms. Tanner, with Katie Orban Tanner, so that we will get the opportunity for the candidates to meet with the press first. So hopefully, when it comes time for the public reception, the press will already have some video. We will be engaging our teacher forum, our principal stakeholders, as well as our cabinet reviews of the candidates. At 6 p.m., we'll begin the public boardroom reception. So here in the boardroom, we'll be receiving the public at 6 p.m. each day. And we will be having a meeting to go into executive session at 7 p.m., which will be the final interview process. One of those nights, probably August 2nd, is when the bond resolution will also be in that meeting. So we'll have a short vote and then go into executive session for our second and final interview. Katie Orban Tanner has committed to move our candidates from place to place for us. So we will have an agenda if board members would like to observe the candidate with the teacher forum or with the principals, but she will handle keeping them on schedule and moving them from place to place. So the full board commitment starts at 6 p.m. each of those days, and we'll be sending out the full schedule once it's made available. We're also offering to meet with teacher forum and the principals at different locations throughout the district. So there'll be not school visits, but at a multi-purpose room to meet with teacher forum at different locations to give the candidates the opportunity to see the district. So I think we incorporated everything that people gave as feedback for that schedule, and as soon as it's finalized, we will make it public. But the most important part will be the 6 p.m. Board reception open to the public, and that will be open to all the public, our employees as well as the public. And then at 7 p.m. we will finish the final interview. If you have any questions that you would like to submit for the final interview, please email me, and we will get them on the interview packet for any additional questions that you have as a follow-up.
How long will the interviews time we have set aside?
I am hoping for an hour to an hour and a half, depending on dinner and follow-up questions. Just depending, the board's pleasure. We're not always very fast, but we're not going to do the full 2-hour interview like was done last time. Does anybody have any other questions or feedback on that part of the process? Again, please also, if you did not go to the One Berkeley Festival last year, you missed out. That was on my list too, August 12th. It is an awesome day. It is an awesome day to see all the people in the school district coming together and loving on kids and taking care of things. It is hot. come prepared to drink some water, but please make a plan to stop by at some point in time for One Berkeley, because it is one of the most awesome things that we do to kick off back to school. And then we'll have a regular scheduled board meeting the following Tuesday. So that's our schedule. We will see lots of each other over the next week. I have nothing else on board chair report. We'll move now, entertain a motion for executive session. There's a motion by Mr. Wright, a second by Mr. McClellan to enter into executive session for the purpose of a pending employment matter to include the appointment of an administrator and to hear 20 student attendance appeals. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Nay. We are in executive session. We'll now entertain a motion to return to regular session.
So moved.
Second. There's a motion by Mr. McClellan, a second by Reverend Spann, to return to regular session. I'd like to note no action was taken in executive session. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We are now in regular session. First, we'll entertain a motion for personnel. I'm sorry, a recommendation from the superintendent.
Yes, ma'am. It's the recommendation of the administration that Mr. Richard Blanchard Jr. be named as the new coordinator for gifted instruction with the contract to take effect August 8th, 2017.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that the board accept the recommendation that Richard Blanchard Jr. be named the new coordinator of gifted instruction with the contract to take effect August 8th, 2017.
Second.
There's a motion by Ms. Kelly, a second by Mr. McClellan, to accept the recommendation of the administration that Richard Blanchard Jr. be named the new coordinator of gifted instruction with a contract to take effect August 8th, 2017. All in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Nay. This is much harder holding a mic, so I apologize, but welcome to Berkeley County. We are very happy to have you here to be a part of our team from the State Department. Now we'll move on to the student attendance appeals. We'll hear students number 1 and 2 together. Is there a motion?
Madam Chairwoman, in the matters of students number 1 and 2, I move that we grant the appeal.
Second.
There's a motion by Mr. McClellan, a second by Ms. Conder, to grant the appeal of students number 1 and 2. All in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Nay.
Nay.
Let's do a hand vote. All in favor, please hold up your right hand. All opposed? The motion fails. Is there another motion in concerns to students number 1 and 2?
Madam Chair, in matter of students 1 and 2, I move that we deny the appeal.
Second.
There's a motion by Ms. Lee, a second by Mr. Barra to deny the appeals of students number 1 and 2. All in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Nay. The motion passes.
Madam Chair, in the matter of student number 3, I move that we grant the attendance appeal.
There's a motion by Mr. McClellan.
Second.
And a second by Ms. Kelly to approve the appeal of student number 3. All in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Nay.
Nay.
Let's take a hand vote. All in favor, please raise your right hand. The motion passes. We'll now move to student number 4.
Madam Chair, in the matter of student number 4, I move that we grant the appeal.
Second.
There's a motion by Mr. McClellan, a second by Ms. Kelly, to grant the appeal of student number 4. All in favor, please raise your right hand. All opposed? The motion fails. We'll now entertain another motion for student number 4.
Madam Chair, I move that we deny the appeal of student number 4.
Second.
There's a motion by Reverend Spann, a second by Mr. Wright, to deny the appeal of student number 4. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed? Motion passes. Student number 5 will be handled through the administrative process. We'll now move on to students number 6 and 7.
Madam Chair, in the matter of students number 6 and 7, I move that we grant the attendance appeal.
Second.
There's a motion by Mr. McClellan, a second by Ms. Kelly, to grant the appeal of students 6 and 7. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed? The motion passes. We're now to students number 8 and 9.
Madam Chairman.
Madam Chairman.
It's not working. Madam Chairman, I move that students number 6 and 7,
8 and 9.
I'm sorry, 8 and 9, have their attendance appeal granted.
Second.
There's a motion by Ms. Condor, a second by Mr. McClellan, to approve the attendance appeal of students number 8 and 9. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed? The motion passes. Students 10, 11, and 12 will be heard together. We'll now entertain motions for students 10, 11, and 12.
Yeah, in reference to the 10, 11, and 12, I move that we should deny it.
There's a motion by Mr. Wright, a second by Ms. Lee, to deny the appeal of students 10, 11, and 12. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed? The motion passes. Student number 13.
Madam Chair, I move that we deny the appeal of student 13.
Second.
There's a motion by Ms. Lee, a second by Mr. Wright, to deny the appeal of student number 13. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed? Okay. Motion passes. Students number 14 and 15 will be heard together. Is there a motion for students 14 and 15?
Madam Chair, I move that we deny the appeals of 14 and 15.
Second.
There's a motion by Ms. Lee, a second by Mr. Wright, to deny the appeals of students number 14 and 15. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed? Motion fails. Is there another motion for students 14 and 15?
Madam Chair, in the matter of students 14 and 15, I move that we grant the appeal.
Second.
There's a motion by Mr. McClellan, a second by Ms. Kelly, to approve the attendance appeals of students number 14 and 15. All in favor, please raise your right hand. I'm faking you out tonight. All opposed? The motion passes. Student number 16.
Motion to deny the request.
Second.
There's a motion by Mr. Barrow, a second by Reverend Spann, to deny the appeal of student number 16. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed? Motion fails. Is there another motion?
We grant the attendance appeal of student number 16.
Second.
There's a motion by Mr. McClellan, a second by Ms. Kelly, to approve the attendance appeal of student number 16. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed? Motion passes. Student number 17.
I move that we grant the attendance appeal from student number 17.
Second.
There's a motion motion by Mr. McClellan, a second by Ms. Kelly, to approve the attendance appeal of student number 17. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed? The motion passes. Student number 18.
Madam Chair, on the matter of student number 18, I move that we approve the attendance appeal.
Second. There's a motion by Mr. McClellan, a second by Walford. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed? Motion passes. Student number 19.
Madam Chair, I recommend that we grant the appeal.
There's a motion by Ms. Kelly, and a second by Mr. McClellan, to approve the attendance appeal of student number 19. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed? The motion carries. Student number 20.
Madam Chair, I move that we deny the appeal for student number 20.
There's a motion by Reverend Spann, a second by Ms. Lee, to deny the appeal of student number 20. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. All opposed? The motion fails. Is there another motion for student number?
Make a motion we approve the appeal.
Second.
There's a motion by Mr. Barrow, a second by Mr. McClellan, to approve the appeal of student number 20. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed? The motion passes. Hearing no other action as needed from executive session, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
There's a motion by Mr. McClellan, a second by Reverend Spann. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Nay.